Hi, Colin. Thanks for joining me on the show. It's very nice to have you. I have not yet done an episode on bedding industry, and it's funny. I spent the last like half an hour before our interview practicing the name of your company, Sheets and Giggles, not to mess up. Yeah,
Sheets and giggles. Yeah.
Sheets and Giggles.
It's a tricky one for non-native speakers. But do you know the idiom shits and giggles by any chance?
Nope.
It's an English idiom. I think it's originated in England. And so Canada, the U.S., Australia, we all say it, and it basically India says it, a few people say it, and it basically means for no reason or just for fun. So if you say, "Why'd you do something?" and somebody says, "Just for shits and giggles," they mean just for fun, just because, no reason, you know.
How cool.
So
I wanted to
yeah,
ask you where the name of the company comes from, and it's very snappy, very
yeah,
on point.
exactly. So it's more, the company itself, Sheets and Giggles, and I call it S&G for short. If that's easier for you, just S&G. I can't say it without laughing, so I tend to abbreviate it. But basically, the thinking of it was that the entire bedding industry, bed sheets, was very boring, like a super boring space, and so we really wanted to do something very different, very unique. And the name just was so important, and like why I started the company, because the brand was so in my head. I could see it. I could see everything in my head, and so it's a really fun company in a very boring space, and I think that that's part of our appeal.
Tell me more about how you started. What motivated you? What was the event that changed your life? It's not an obvious
Um,
industry to be in.
oh God, I was looking back on my career the other day. I was talking to somebody in my family, and it's hard to pinpoint the exact reason why I started the company. Um, I've worked at the world's largest hedge fund in Connecticut, with like I think they had like $200 billion under management. I've worked at a small startups. I've worked at as a recruiter, recruiting people for other companies. Not in that order. And basically, about 3 years ago, I was working at a wearable technology startup. If you're familiar with Fitbit, it wasn't Fitbit, but it was similar to that in concept, where it tracked your steps, it found your keys. It was like this big, the size of your thumb maybe. But if you pressed it, it would send out an emergency alert and live location data to your friends and family to let them know where you were and that you needed help. So that was a very mission driven company that I helped found with my friends. We started it 2015, and we worked on it for 2 or 3 years. We raised $3.5 million. We hired 30 people in downtown Denver, which is where we're based. And unfortunately, that company just didn't work out, even though we had product on the shelves in hundreds of stores around the United States. We were on television. We were, really good press. We were well funded. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out, and that's the kind of the nature of startup companies. And so in September 2017, we all got fired, laid off at 1 p.m. on a Monday afternoon. And I think that was probably the final. I think you need like a breaking point to start your own company. Like, you need this really motivating factor that puts a chip on your shoulder, or that just makes you, lose your mind a little bit, to be completely honest. And I slept in for a couple weeks. I cleared my head. I worked out every day. And eventually I just, I couldn't stop thinking about this idea that I had for a bed sheets company, which is the weirdest thing. But I had bought the website sheetsgiggles.com like 4 months before this, because I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, like, everybody sells cotton, everybody sells polyester. There's no differentiation in this industry. It's a huge industry. It's a really boring space. So like, I like being funny, so I could branch out, and with a different brand voice and a different product. I'm a big mission-driven person. Or my last company was trying to fight violence and medical emergencies by having this emergency button. And then this company is a sustainability mission. So I'm really passionate about sustainability and climate change. And I'm going to be dealing with this for probably the next 40 or 50 years of my life. And so it was really important to me to do something with a mission orientation. And so I think 3 weeks after I got laid off, I founded S&G, and now it's been over 2.5 years since then. So it'll be 3 years this October. So I'm really excited about that.
A very unusual way to start a bedding company.
Yes.
I must say. Sustainability. You mentioned sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
The bed sheets that you are producing are made of an unusual material, eucalyptus lyocell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fiber.
Mm-hmm.
How
Correct.
did you choose this material? What were you choosing from?
So it was interesting. So I originally started the company with the idea to do bamboo viscose for the bed sheets because I was reading about it, and I was meeting with different experts on it. And unfortunately, what I discovered is that bamboo viscose, unless it's made very, very, very responsibly, it has a lot of runoff associated with it. So it's a very similar process to eucalyptus lyocell. Actually, it's the first bamboo viscose is the first generation of the what's called cellulosic rayon production process. So that means, rayon, cellulose, fabric made from plants. And then modal is the second version of it. Yeah, it's usually made from a mix of woods, beechwood, spruce, pine. And then eucalyptus lyocell is the third generation of this process. And eucalyptus is usually the base wood used for it. And basically, the major difference between bamboo viscose and eucalyptus lyocell that I learned about 2.5 years ago is that you can reuse the solvents in every single batch. So with eucalyptus lyocell, you're doing wood in, pulp out, wood in, pulp out. And you end up getting fiber with almost no runoff whatsoever. So you can reuse almost 100% of the chemicals in every batch. Whereas with bamboo viscose, they unfortunately can't reuse the chemicals. So there's a lot of runoff associated with the process unless those solvents are captured appropriately, which a lot of times they're not. So it is a closed loop process, whereby the ingredients in every batch are reused. And then in terms of other things like water usage, insecticide usage, energy usage, compared to cotton sheets, eucalyptus lyocell uses about 96% less water, which is about 4,000 liters saved per bed sheet set compared to cotton sheets. And then in terms of energy, it's about 30% less. And then in terms of insecticides and pesticides, it's much, much less. Cotton by itself as a crop uses about 15 to 20% of the world's insecticides just by itself as a crop. And it only uses about 2.5% of the world's arable land, which is a sizable chunk of the world's arable land, but it has a huge ratio of insecticide usage versus other crops. And so bugs love cotton. And so basically eucalyptus uses no pesticides, no insecticides, naturally insecticide. And so when you put it all together, you have this really amazing product that's, and I've got it on my bed. It's extremely soft. It's extremely cooling. It manages moisture really, really well. So if you sweat at night, it'll actually evenly distribute the moisture across the fabric, and it will evaporate it before you ever wake up in any moisture. And then it's also considered widely one of the most sustainable fabrics in the world, alongside hemp and a few other fabrics. But it's extremely suitable for bed sheets. It's very, very soft. It's very, very smooth. And we just get rave reviews from people. I think we have over 2,500 reviews now. I think 2,000 on our website and 500 on Amazon, and we've been very, very happy so far with the reception to the products. And we've now been shipping for, I think, 19 months now. We've been shipping products, and we'll be hitting year 2 in a little bit now.
I checked the website, and most of the reviews say it's the softest fabric. It's very soft. It's cosmically soft. And I'm like, what is going on there?
It's just, it's interesting because I hadn't heard of this fabric 3 years ago. I couldn't have told you about it, and I've just completely fallen in love with it. And I've met with so many people, and we've got a great product team now and a great production team. And we basically have become experts in this very quickly over the last couple of years. And I'll tell you what, that first batch of production, we I think we had like 30% fabric reductions in that first batch. It was really, really bad. And since then we've gotten that number way down. But yeah, it's definitely everything improves every single batch of production. Our fiber selection improves, our sewing processes, everything improves. Even just the knowledge of people on the ground improves in terms of quality assurance and spotting errors. And so it's been a really interesting last few years, and the reception from customers, like you said, has been just really overwhelming. I think the number one thing that I really love seeing is that and we don't really lead with the sustainability, which is interesting. A lot of companies that are sustainable companies, they'll lead with the sustainability as like, this is our number one factor. Like, you should buy this because it's the sustainable option. And we actually don't really lead with that. We kind of talk about that at the end of the process, where we tell people about the earth benefit, the benefits for the environment. Because I think that when it comes to bedding and bed sheets in this category, I think that people are generally fairly selfish, especially in the United States. And I'm a proud American, but we are like pretty selfish consumers. We want what we think is the best. And so if you tell somebody, I think that, this is the more sustainable option, they're going to kind of question it as like, oh, is it not as good as cotton? Is it not as good as polyester? And we don't want them to have those questions. So we lead with, look, this is the softest thing you'll ever, literally has a lower coefficient of friction than cotton sheets. It's more breathable than polyester. It's more breathable than cotton. Zero static electricity, hypoallergenic if you have allergies. And then we have these reviews from people with fibromyalgia, with eczema, with multiple sclerosis, with ALS, with neuropathy. We have reviews from people with all sorts of conditions and chronic pain and nerve pain ailments. And they leave us these reviews that make me honestly tear up a little bit, where they're like, because I have a herniated C4, C5 disc. And so occasionally still, but back in the day, I used to wake up from neck pain in the middle of the night all the time. And I gotta tell you, I don't know if you suffer from chronic pain or not, but if anybody out there is listening who has chronic pain that wakes them up in the middle of the night, it is one of the worst feelings, because you were sleeping, you were pain free for a moment in time, you were sleeping, and then all of a sudden you're awake again and in pain because your pain woke you up. And that's the worst. It's almost indescribable what that's like. And so we have people who tell us, like, these sheets are the only thing that with my skin condition or my pain condition, that allow me to sleep through the night. And it's just life changing for some people. And that's something that I honestly never truly expected. When I was starting the company, I was expecting to have some fun, do some good, help people sleep better, save some water, save some energy. We plant a tree for every order. So I expected a lot of stuff like that, but I didn't expect the reviews.
Effects.
Yeah, exactly, that really personal human effect. Yeah.
That's an interesting angle. You said when people hear my bed sheets are sustainable, and they think it's less good than ordinary options like cotton and so on. While my understanding and how, say, I would react to a more sustainable option, I would immediately think it's more expensive.
Premium. Yeah.
Is it the case?
It is more expensive. Yeah, it costs about 3 times what cotton costs to produce, and it costs about 10 times what polyester costs to produce. So it is more expensive to make. Everything from the raw materials to the production processes, and making sure that we have no runoff, making sure that we're capturing all wastewater and reusing that. There's a lot of expenses that go with making this product. But it's a highly scientific process. But the I think the thing that I've really clued in on with Americans is that we went through this phase in the 90s where like people started talking about sustainability and green products. And I think that people, especially in maybe people that are older than 30 or 40, kind of have this perception, and I'm one of them, who if they hear that something is sustainable or better for the earth, they just think that it's maybe not going to last as long, or it's going to be not as good. I think that we had these products early on that were like green products that were shoes and toothpaste and like plastic free packaging that fell apart and like all sorts of different things. And now that's not the case. I think now people are starting to understand that like actually sustainable products can be some of the best, most premium things you'll ever buy. But I just don't think that the messaging when it comes to especially this category, the sustainability messaging to me is good, but it's not sufficient to really capture that user's or that customer's attention. They need to think that it's better than what they already have on their bed if they're going to make that investment. And truthfully, it is better. I mean, these are the best sheets, and I'm not just blowing smoke. It's they're the best sheets that you'll ever buy, and so we try to get that across in the marketing, and in that way, and we don't. People tell us like, and they leave reviews. If you read some of them, they say, I think this company undersold their sheets, or I think they, they didn't do a good enough job explaining how good they actually are. And those are the best reviews. Those are the ones where I go to my marketing team and I'm like, we should step it up. And they're like, no, we're good. We're doing good. Don't worry. So yeah, it's hard to be a founder and CEO as well as a growing team and not have all the control anymore and pass that off. That's been difficult for me too.
Right. When I feel like when I'm investing into something that is 3 to 5 times more expensive, I expect it to be durable and serve me a long time. Slightly let's take a slightly an angle of bedding industry. Is it in any way similar to fast fashion industry? Do you have any estimation, any idea of how often people dispose of their bed sheets and how are they more inclined to buy more of this product?
Yeah. According to some surveys, Americans specifically buy new bed sheets every. About 30% of Americans buy new bed sheets every year, 30 to 40%. And so that's the average American has a 2 or 3 bedroom house. They maybe they buy one set of sheets for one bed and then get the old set onto the other bed or whatever it is. So it's about 30 to 40% of people buy new bed sheets every single year. So it's certainly not like fast fashion where there are like fads and trends and things that you need to like very quickly get for your home. Otherwise you're not following the latest trend or whatever it is. I do think there's a little bit of similarity just in terms of the amount of waste and the amount. I mean, textiles by itself, the industry is, I think, the second most polluting industry next to oil and gas in the world, and most of that is from fast fashion. But home textiles, when it comes to bedding and towels and and other items that you find in your home, those are also big polluters too, and they're big methods of waste. So a single cotton T-shirt can use 2,500 liters of water. A single cotton bed sheet can use 4,000 liters of water to make. And so the amount of water that's used, I think, is probably one of the biggest things that people don't realize about the textile industry, especially when it comes to cotton. And then when it comes to polyester, you're talking about the number one source of microplastics in the ocean. Yeah, and it's just all petroleum based. I think, and that's one of the struggles with me and running an American based company. I don't know if it's unique to America or not, but I would say that probably at least 50 to 70% of people, not even joking, I would say at least half of Americans that I engage with don't know that polyester is made from petroleum, or that it's a microplastic. They just don't they don't know that it's oil based. And it's because it's been marketed very well as, microfiber, or, and when it comes to, like a comforter or something like that, they'll say it's a down alternative, right? So they'll call it like cruelty free filling, which means like, yeah, no geese were killed to make this, pillow or whatever, but it's full plastic. But they don't, they don't say that. So let's say they call it an alternative, or, so the marketing is really, really stellar around some of these more unsustainable products in the space. So in that regard, there are similarities, but not in terms of the frequency of usage or purchase, but the amount and the volume of the yardage when it comes to bed sheets, and duvets and duvet covers and pillows. It is a large volume every year that a certain amount of people are purchasing.
When we are talking about sustainability, it's smart to look at the full life cycle. Here including also the supply chain. Where is the raw material coming from for Sheets and Giggles?
Yeah.
And where is it produced? Where the actual product is produced?
So the product's produced in India, and we're also we're opening up a new we were planning to open up a new factory in the United States by the end of this year, but with everything going on with COVID-19, those plans are a little jeopardized. But we produce everything in India. We have a really fantastic manufacturing team over there. We've won awards for our ethics in manufacturing, and the folks on the ground out there that are part of the S&G team out there. And then in terms of the raw, and we've got a lot of stuff on our website. If anybody wants to go to our blog, we've got tons of videos and pictures and resources on our manufacturing process. And then in terms of the raw materials, we source our trees from biodiverse farms that are located in India, Canada, Sweden, and South Africa. Do these on rotation, so we're not relying on any one location too heavily. And so those trees are all on biodiverse farms. They're generally on non-arable land, so they're not on farmland that could be used for other crops. That's one of the beauties of eucalyptus, is that it can grow on pretty much any soil at all. And we don't harvest any trees from any forest or natural environments. All the farms are managed in coordination with an NGO that makes sure that things are as good as they can be in order to protect the surrounding environments and surrounding people. And so it's a really, really incredible supply chain from top to bottom, from seed to sale. And we plant 2 new trees for every tree that we harvest. Something else that you can do with eucalyptus and with other trees, you can branch them instead of harvesting the entire tree. So it's a completely renewable system, and eucalyptus trees come to maturity in, I think, 7 to 10 years, generally speaking. And so it's a very quick maturity process as well for planting new trees, which is why we plant 2 new ones for every one that we harvest, is so we can invest in the future as well. We've been doing this for a few years now. So it's a pretty great closed loop system. And one of the things that I'm really working on is, now that we're entering year 3 of the business, and as we move into years 4, 5, and 6, and you see this now with some companies that are doing this as they get more cash resources and as they become bigger companies, is working to offset the carbon footprint of transport. And so that's something that I'm really focused on moving into years 3, 4, and 5, is how are we going to offset our carbon footprint of transport, whether that's transporting from India to the United States, transporting our raw materials, or sending our sheets from our warehouses in California and Florida across the country. And so that's going to be a really big priority for us. We had to get off the ground in the last couple of years, and now I'm really excited to build a truly carbon neutral company, hopefully within the next couple of years. So
it's a big challenge. Yeah,
challenge.
Love talking to people who choose to work on real challenges, not fake challenges.
Mm-hmm.
How was your supply chain? Was it at all maybe supply chain disrupted given the coronavirus?
Yeah, completely. India completely shut down on March 24th. I mean, luckily, we saw this coming a little bit sooner than I think some other folks, at least in the U.S. government. And and we basically got inventory stateside as quickly as possible because we just knew that it was eventually going to affect India and all of Asia. And so India shut down on March 24th. Our entire team over there is on paid leave. No one's producing anything. No one's in the factories. No one's working. Um, everybody over there is happy and healthy. I'm on the phone with them pretty much every night. And the country should be reopening in the next couple weeks. They've been taking a lot of precautions. Very proud of our factory. They produced many millions of masks as well to help with everything. But yeah, it's been extremely disruptive. I mean, everything from India closing down to shipping delays within the United States to financing tightening up for inventory financing and other things like that. It's definitely been extremely disruptive to the business and to the supply chain. But hopefully it's more of a temporary thing. And we've also, one of the things that we did immediately was the city of Denver called us about 4 or 5 weeks ago. And they said, hey, look, we're going to get a big influx of people that are symptomatic into these into homeless shelters, and we can't have them spreading the virus to other people that are staying there overnight. And Denver's got a big homeless population, and so basically they said we're building 300 what they're calling like motels, where they're isolated units for people to stay overnight if they're symptomatic, so that way they don't spread the disease to other people in these shelters. And they said, we're asking around who sells bed sheets in Denver, who's a bed sheet company in Denver, and they said Sheets and Giggles keeps coming up, and so can you donate sheet sets to our shelters? And so we ended up giving all of our twin and twin XL inventory, which are the smaller sizes because of the beds that they had outfitted for the shelters. I think it was 228 units that we had on hand, and we just gave them all to the city of Denver. And right now we have, I think, 200 or 300 people every night that are symptomatic that are staying in those motels on our bed sheets. And so that makes me feel really good. But we're also out of twin and twin XL on the website, and so luckily it only accounts for 2% of our sale, 1 or 2% of our sales, but it's still a lot of inventory that we just gave to the city of Denver. But like when called upon in moments like this, you got to respond.
Right.
You got to respond. Yeah.
So not only your company is environmentally friendly, it's also socially responsible.
I mean, there's no point to it if we're not. So, if it's basically something that sorry, my Alexa's going off in the background. I don't know if you can hear it. But basically, one of the things that I did from day one is I built in this this mechanism for the company where, like, by doing business and by growing, we're doing good socially. So for every single order that we receive, we plant a tree. So we've now planted, I think, close to 30,000 trees. And so we do one for every single order that we receive. On top of that, we've pledged 1% of our time, products, and equity to Colorado charities. So, we give a lot of money and products and time to local Colorado charities. And then on top of that, one of the things that we did recently was we actually, I think two things. Last year, we donated 20% of our Black Friday sales to the World Wildlife Fund to help with the wildfires in Australia to help with koala recovery efforts. And we donated $17,000 to that. And then with this year, for 30 days, between March 19th and April 17th, we donated 20% of all of our revenue to COVID-19 emergency relief, and we ended up donating $40,000 to COVID-19 relief. So we do a lot of stuff. We've given away dozens of sheet sets to doctors and nurses and healthcare workers. Yeah, I started the company to have fun, do good, and help other people. And if we're not doing that, then there's really no point to the company. So yeah, it's baked into how we operate.
I totally share this view. Listen, how did the sales change with the COVID-19 and quarantine? I feel like, at least from my example, I started to comfort my own house, and flowers every week, another lamp, more like generating coziness.
Yeah.
Is it the same with
Um,
benefits
for
globally?
some people, yes. For some people, no. America has been hit pretty hard by this, and we most of our sales are from the U.S. Um, America's been hit pretty hard by this. We had 20-30 million people lose their jobs, which is crazy. And we've been trying our best to help folks out in different ways. We've put job we're a betting company, so it's a little weird, but we put job resources on our website, resume writing help and resources on our website just for helping people, because I used to be a recruiter, so I can talk to that a little bit. But I think in March we saw a 30% reduction in sales, and so that was difficult. That was definitely a challenging month. And then in April, we've seen a nice rebound because I think that some people are investing more in what they're doing at home. And then I think that there's also we're doing Mother's Day is on May 10th. So people are,
Mm-hmm.
giving sheets for gifts for their mom. And so I think that it's been a really nice rebound in the month of April, but for 3 or 4 weeks there, it was, a 30% drop in sales. And the unfortunate thing about this is that a lot of states are starting to reopen, which is, I think necessary in some ways to help people out that are suffering. But at the same time, I am a little worried about a second sort of outbreak. And so the longer this goes on and the more uncertainty that we have with, is this going to be a 3-month thing, a 6-month thing, a 12-month thing, a 24-month thing? That's where the threats to the business become a little bit more systemic. And so, I'm hopeful that this is at least controlled, as the second outbreak will surely be coming down the line.
Do you think the industry, the bedding industry, will somehow change and turn into a more sustainable one in the future?
Yeah, I think it has to. I think that people are I just as people that are younger grow up, the millennial generation, which is my generation, or Gen Z is now moving into their 20s. Um, those generations are just people that I think are, as they get more and more power, and as they get more and more responsibility and more income, I don't think that they're going to be buying unsustainable products. I just don't think that it's something that people will be. I mean, on some level they will, but at the end of the day, it's not about a handful of people living perfectly, right? It's not about everybody composting or everybody recycling every piece of plastic, or nobody using single-use plastics, or nobody ever buying polyester or anything like that. There are some things that need to systemically change, of course, but I think at the end of the day, it's about tens or hundreds of millions of people who are all living imperfectly, who take steps to reduce the amount of polyester they buy, or the amount of plastics that they buy, or they'll email companies very politely. We had people early on. We had when we first started shipping, we had packaging that had plastic in it, and it was just one piece. It was recyclable, but it was one piece, and it was to prevent water damage. And we just we shipped probably our first 5 or 10,000 units with it, and people reached out to us very very politely, and they said, hey, look, I just want to, we love what you're doing compared to cotton, we love what you're doing compared to polyester, but if you want to take it a step further, you should remove all the plastic from your packaging. And I knew that. I mean, in my heart, I knew that, but I was really worried again about, and we see, I can talk to this now. I was worried about damage during transit, and I was just worried that people were going to open up their packages and there was going to be maybe a water damage, or there was going to be a scuff on it, and then you get a 1-star review, and then people read the 1-star reviews and they don't buy, and then your company isn't able to grow. And if you don't grow, if your company is not successful, you can't help anyone, right? And so that was scary, but we basically took all the plastic out of the packaging, and we explained it to people. We said, hey, look, here's what we're doing. So if you have any water damage or a scuff, or the FedEx guy leaves it outside and and it gets damaged, it's okay. Contact us. We'll replace it. And we get a few complaints. Like the more units you sell, the more people will, just in terms of volume of people, will come to you with a complaint. Our comforters, no plastic, not at all. And we ship them in the box, and we've shipped out like 1,000 comforters since we launched them last month. And most people are just like obsessed with the comforter. But there's been 2 or 3 people who, the post office left it outside on their front door. It rained. It soaked through the box. There's no vacuum sealing. There's no plastic. It costs more to ship because it's not vacuum packed. But we do that to save plastic. And we've had people leave us bad reviews because of the post office leaving it outside and getting water damage. And they're like, you should put this in plastic. And we're like, we're just not gonna. We're done with that. We're not gonna do that.
It's a conscious decision not to. Oh my god.
Right. Yeah, and that's tough. So now, but we've shipped now, I think our last 30 or 40,000 units without any plastic. And so if we hadn't had those initial customers come to us and say, hey, look, they were very polite. I think you catch more flies with honey than vinegar when you do this, right? They just said, look, like, here's a useful suggestion. And we got it a few times, and I said, you know what, let's just do it, see what happens. And overall, it's been fine. There's been no major issues. And so I think that's going to be one of the changes as time goes on, is just, I think more people and more consumers need to reach out to companies in a good way, and we even had people do this with our advertisements, where they've seen our advertisement on a, because Google will do this, right? They'll like propagate an advertisement on a website that's maybe unsavory or spreading misinformation, or, is a fake news website or something like that. And they reach out to us on Twitter and they'll say, hey, just FYI, your advertisement is being shown on this website. And then you can go into Google and you can blacklist websites to not show your ads on. So we do that too. So I just love the way that people are consciously reaching out to companies and having them change their production habits, because really it is the law of supply and demand. If people are asking for it and people are demanding it, then companies will change their processes and will change what they do. And if people don't ask it and don't demand it, then companies won't do it. It's just a function of the way the economy works. But I think that over time the bedding industry will have to, and the home textiles industry in general, will have to move from cotton, because the amount of water, and it's actually a twofold problem, right? As the world population increases, the more cotton you produce, the more water that you're using. Extremely water intensive crop, but the more water is needed for the growing population. At some point, there's going to be a water shortage. It's already happening in some parts of the world. And so I think that there's going to be certain things that are going to have to change in terms of water consumption and insecticide and pesticide consumption. I mean, we're killing off a lot of necessary insects right now that are going to be very difficult for us to reckon with in the coming decades, in terms of the mass extinction that we're causing in the insect population. And then in terms of just microplastics in our water and everything that stems from creating polyester out of petroleum. I think polyester at last count accounted for 2/3 of all fabric consumed right now. It's completely overtaking cotton. And that's really, really scary, because polyester is, pretty much a long-term death sentence for a lot of us. So I'm hopeful that the bedding industry, as well as the fashion industry, will change over time. Fast fashion is going to be the big one, though, that's going to have to change. Otherwise, not a lot's going to get done over time, because that's such a huge consumer-driven industry. So that consumer behavior is going to be really crucial for that industry.
but even here in Ukraine, I see that things are changing. The first ever service of all clothes rental is about to open, and in fact, the
Nice.
coronavirus was the necessary punch for this idea to come to life. So previously, it was only the service of rental of cocktail dresses and events and convention
Right.
clothes, and now it's becoming the whole thing, whole wardrobe, things that you are wearing once in a lifetime. You can donate, and there is a system of remunerations for how many times people order it. So the service is called Oh My Look, and
Nice.
cool. It wouldn't have been born if not for coronavirus. Another thing you say, water and so on resources, just reminded me of I don't remember, last year probably, South African disappearing water, and only because people started to be more conscious, and they were hit so hard by the problem and by this challenge, where every day you see, like, here is the clock, in less than a month you will not have any water in the city. A couple of weeks ago I discussed with the professional from the Climate Kick. I think it's only European innovations and technology like network. We discussed the challenges of the circular economy. And my question was the same, like, how do you expect the world to change in post-coronavirus crisis time? Oh, well, the answer is there is no other way to go around it. There is no way, because there are no resources.
Yeah, we're seeing
We have to change it.
we're seeing huge consumer changes in the United States too. I mean, the amount of people that are for example, cooking instead of going out to restaurants, and that are learning how to cook, some people for the first time, or the amount of people that are questioning, why do I have to commute 5 days a week to my job? I'm working from home without issue right now. And so I think there's going to be like a lot of systemic changes from this. I don't know. And if I can be completely frank and honest, I think one of the reasons why people are rushing to reopen is so that way these changes don't become entrenched. And that's not to say that there's a conspiracy or a group of people that are deciding this, but I think that it's more of, people are realizing, like, and it comes from, I think it comes from a good place, like a decent place. Like, there's a lot of restaurants that are out of business right now, that are really, really suffering and really, really hurting. There's a lot of companies that need people to commute to their offices, or that that would like their workers to be back in office. And there's I think that the concern for these businesses comes from a good place, more or less, to help keep the economy running and to alleviate that financial suffering. But I do think that the longer this goes on, the more that, when this goes back to normal, people are going to have a lot of questions about, why did we always do it that way? Why did we? And I think that that's actually one of the coolest. I mean, there's not many cool things that come from a global pandemic, obviously. But I think that's one of the more interesting things that will come from this, is the wide scale questioning of, why have we always done this? And I don't think society gets a lot of opportunities to stop and ask that question.
Globally, especially. Right, I also agree. And I'm on the side of this has already happened. The virus is already there. Obviously, it's not the best thing that could happen to all of us on the planet Earth, but we are there. Let's search for positive sides.
Yeah, you gotta look at for positives. I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's one of the things that inspires me is how people across the world have come together. The concern that my team in India has for my team in Denver, and the concern that we have for them, and the concern that we have for our partners in Europe, and our partners in Canada, and I think that there's been some tension. Obviously, I think that the United States government is for lack of a better word, not the friendliest right now in terms of where we would like to be as a country. But it's definitely something that I think people around the world have really come together for one another, and around the United States as well. People in different cities looking out for one another, and I'm just really inspired by the way that people have responded to this from like a psychological perspective. I think that I'm very impressed with people being able to stay indoors for like 2 months at this point. I don't know how much longer they've got in them before they start to lose their minds a little bit, but it's definitely in Denver. I don't know if you do this where you are at 8 p.m., 8 o'clock every night. The whole city of Denver, which is like 2 million people or 3 million people, I think, in the surrounding area, they howl. So they it's like a wolf. They go outside and it's called Howl at the Moon, and it's called Howl for healthcare workers. Yeah, on our Instagram or on our TikTok, I think that we have, or YouTube, we've got a couple videos of it where my team has captured it while they've been working at home. And it's loud. It's loud and it's fun, and all the dogs join in. The dogs will howl with the humans. It's really fun. And it's like a little reminder that even though everybody is isolated right now, that we've all got we're all connected, and so it's like a fun little thing. I know that some people who work night shift don't like it because they're trying to sleep before their work shift. I feel bad for them, but it is a nice little community builder, so that's cool.
Right. Colin, one last question,
Yep.
because we are running to the end of our interview and I already took too much of your time.
That's okay.
One piece of advice you would share with all of us and listeners of Sustainability Explored.
It's weird when people ask me for advice because I feel like I've got a little bit of what's it called, imposter syndrome, where
we all suffer, I know.
Yeah. I was on a panel for that last year. It was fun. Being on a panel for imposter syndrome was funny because I didn't feel like I deserved to be on the panel. But yeah. So I think the advice I'd give right now, I'm feeling a little emotional right now with everything going on. I'd probably, beyond the sustainability piece and beyond the business piece, people out there, I know there's a lot of folks listening that maybe are thinking about starting their own business or growing their own company. I think the number one thing I'd say is just don't miss the forest for the trees. I think, which is an American idiom. I don't know if it translates well, but basically what I mean by that is don't lose focus on the most important things for the little things. And I think that this whole coronavirus situation has made a lot of people realize and refocus on what's most important in life, which is family and friends and the relationships that we have, and the goals that we have as people, and why. And I think that a lot of people are asking themselves, like, why do I have these goals? Why do I have why do I work as hard as I do? Why do I put myself through this? These are some of the things that I've struggled with personally in the last few weeks. My family's in Florida. I'm in Colorado, thousands of miles away from them. I miss them. I never get to see them. And it's got me questioning a lot of things about like why I do the things that I do. And that's why we've spent so much time and money on helping other people, is because this has allowed me and the team to really lean into what's important to us, which is helping others. And so, I just think that for everybody out there that is feeling something similar right now, I'd lean into it. And I would ask yourself some really interesting questions right now, introspective questions about why you do what you do, and what would you change if you could put your life on pause for 2 months? Because I feel like that's what a lot of people are going through right now.
It's gonna be painful in the beginning, but the results are gonna be worth it.
I think so. I think so. I mean, I've my friends of mine have lost family to this. One of my best friends was checked into the hospital a couple weeks ago for it. Luckily, she's stabilized. There's a lot of recentering going on right now, I think, with people in terms of what they find important, what they value. And so, my advice is just lean into that. Ask yourself the hard questions. And I think that some people will really like some of the answers they get, and other people won't. And then you have to figure out why you don't like the answers and work on that. So.
Right. Thank you so much. Thanks again for this wonderful conversation and for your time. got me really inspired and philosophical in a way.
Thanks. I had a lot of fun. This is good. A good way to start my day. So
Thanks so much.
all right. Thanks, Anna.
Ciao, ciao.